big soul, a big soul, a big soul, a big soul.
Hey, welcome everyone today to the very first inaugural episode of the Big Soul podcast. I'm here today with my bandmate Kelleth Chin, and we're going to talk about the Big Soul origin story, which is very exciting and timely as Big Soul is approaching its 30th anniversary of the record release of our homemade album in France, the country of France. Hi, Kelleth.
Hi, yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this story. It brings back a lot of memories, brings back a lot of trauma also. But yeah, let's
Nice.
do it.
Yay. Well, I'm glad to be here to process it with you. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't, I'm Caroline, by the way, but you all know that already because it's probably on the screen.
Caroline Wampole.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we should start with how we first met, Kelleth, which we
Yeah.
had to go back in time.
We did first meet at one point, like any two people often do. But we met in college. There was a small liberal arts college called New College in Sarasota, Florida. We met there. I got there a year before you, but I have a very distinct memory of meeting you, Caroline, because we always had these outdoor parties with like music, and it was like wonderful because there was, palm trees in the main courtyard. And we were, having a normal party, and I just like see this tall blonde who's like dancing to Jimi Hendrix and drinking a Busch beer, singing, excuse me while I kiss the sky. And you really made an impression on me. And, from that point on, like I wouldn't say that we became like really close friends at that point, but I definitely knew who you were.
Yeah, and I will have to just say for our listeners out there who don't know what New College is, it was a college when we went, there were only 435 students in the whole school. So it was easy to know who people were to begin with, but yeah, and I knew who Kelleth was because he made all the mixtapes for the parties, all the music. You were sort of the music guy. Everybody had, a role. So whereas I did theater, so that was my senior thesis was an improvisational theater group. And that's what I was doing.
Yeah, I was doing music. At first I was a poetry major, but then I became a music major. And I actually started the first bands, at least in our era, at the school, and tried to get you to join, Caroline, as a tambourine player. But I remember you kind of like you failed the tambourine audition.
I failed the audition. It's harder to play than people think. I just want to put that out there in case people are like, "Oh, I'll just play tambourine in the band." No, you won't.
Yeah, really, don't try this at home.
Don't even think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you eventually you got your revenge and you rejoined the band, but that's coming up later in the story.
Yeah. So we graduated together at the same time, even though Kelleth was a little younger, because he was a child prodigy, and then we had this brilliant idea after graduating when our fellow students were going on to grad school and other lofty pursuits. We thought that, that we should move to Buffalo and start a band, right,
Buffalo,
Kelleth?
New York. That's
Buffalo, New York.
right next to one of the Great Lakes, and gets very cold. It wasn't cold when we got there, right?
No.
It was like summertime, and we had the idea that we were going to start a street duo, which would have been great, except that what we didn't realize is that the temperatures drop to sub-zero in the winter, and you can't really do it without getting hypothermia. So we just decided to start like a regular band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, rhythm and blues band. That was kind of your speciality because you'd been doing blues and rhythm and blues, and you had a lot of songs already in your wheelhouse at that point.
Yeah, and I had forgotten about the first name of the band. So how did that even come about? I don't remember.
United Nation. Yeah, so there were three of us. It was me and you, and we found this drummer, Ricky Quicksand Martin, who agreed to play with us in Buffalo. And we went to meet this guy, I don't know who he was, who wanted to be our manager. We had a lot of meetings like that over the years. And But he looked at the three of us and just said, yeah, you guys should call yourself United Nations, because we were all, different ethnicities. So,
I remember our first gig. It was at this place called the Pipe Dragon,
yep,
right?
in
Yeah,
Buffalo.
there weren't that many people there, but we felt encouraged enough to go on, and I think we got like our second gig was like a 3-set gig, like a long,
Yeah.
right? And somewhere we've got our set list, and you can see that we've got there's a lot of like Chuck Berry songs, old rhythm and blues songs. That was mostly what we did.
Yeah, and one thing, just for our listeners out there or watchers, Kelleth taught me to play bass. I didn't play bass before I joined the band. I had listened to a lot of music in my life, and I definitely felt like I could play all the instruments in my head. But our first show, I didn't know the names of the strings. I just memorized the patterns visually. Luckily, they weren't that complicated.
And I remember actually for that second gig, it was at the place called the Essex Street Pub. Like that actually was in the winter, and I think by that time we had just realized like this is not going to be working for us. It's too cold, and we decided that we made the decision beforehand, and we hadn't even told our drummer yet that we were going to move to LA.
Yeah. And that sort of began the next chapter, which I'm going to call our graduate school, Kelleth, because neither of us went to grad school like so many of our classmates did. But I think LA was really where we came into our own as a band. I mean, we certainly had to go through a lot of kind of rejection and humiliation at the beginning.
Yeah. It took us a while, and I think we were a little bit lost, right, for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we found another drummer, Donu, and so we had like kind of like the same kind of look also, but we were still playing a lot of those like rhythm and blues songs, and I don't know. I remember, Caroline, like I was telling you, just like we're going to play some shows. It'll be about 6 months. Then we're going to get discovered, and we'll get signs, and the rest is going to be musical history.
Yeah. I mean, we were young, and I think that especially when you're starting out, and in Buffalo, we had such a great response to our music. That's the thing about being a big fish in a small pond, which is what we were. And also at New College, we were really big fish in that pond because there were only 400 students. So we're coming from these really cozy environments to LA where nobody cares if you're in a band. You'd say you're in a band, and they'd sort of look past you like, okay, is anyone doing anything interesting here? Because everyone was in a band, and all the best. You had Red Hot Chili Peppers, Guns N' Roses. I think Madonna was playing at some points on Sunset Strip when we were there. So yeah, I don't think we realized what we were up against, and probably for the best, because if we knew, we probably would never have tried.
Yeah. And we were still hanging on to like a lot of those like rhythm and blues songs. I think we were like starting to bring in like a little bit more like kind of funky music, but we had not really found our musical identity yet. We definitely, at least for myself, I had not like found my sense of style yet. I was like, I don't know what if you look at pictures of us, I'm wearing like a blazer and like loafers, and I don't know exactly what was, what my idea was, but
I think you were you thought, oh, I'll just dress up. And so that was like, those were your dress up clothes. And I just wore probably what I had worn to work at my health food store job. I don't think we really had a sense of who we were as a brand, or, I mean, I hate that word, but like that we hadn't found our identity yet.
We hadn't found our identity. We also hadn't found many people to come to our shows because LA is big for one thing. And then, like a lot of those shows were on weeknights, like very late. And it was hard to get people to come. And so, yeah, I remember like one show, the booker would tell me like, you got to bring in people. And at the show, there was nobody there except one person sitting at the table in front of us. And he was the booker.
Right.
So often like very humiliating.
That's the humiliation part. Yeah. And we were kind of seeing, we did the rhythm and blues, but there was a moment, Kelleth, where it became really important to start writing our own songs.
Yes. We got a show at this club called Club 88. And the rule at Club 88 was like no covers. And so that was like a little bit alarming to us because we played a lot of covers, especially those rhythm and blues covers. And so, that kind of forced us, to start writing our own songs, or at least, reworking the covers so they were sort of quasi originals. But we had to write more songs. We had to, come up with more of like the kind of sound I think that we envisioned.
Yeah. There were lots of ways in which we were learning how to be in a band, but while we were doing it, there was no sort of like, oh, you're going to learn this and then go take it to the professional venue. We were actually playing in venues and practicing our mistakes while we were there. So frankly, maybe it was good that not that many people came to see us during those early shows.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and one thing just for context, like what was going on in LA at the time, like what was dominating when we got there were like those LA, like hair bands, it was Motley Crue and, Rat and Guns N' Roses was a really big band at that time. And so we really were kind of out of place, but we were not daunted really,
No.
like it was kind of like, no, we're going to do our thing.
Well, we kind of made fun of we love that movie Spinal Tap. I think that together, you and I have watched it probably 100 times. And so we were kind of in that mode of making fun of those guys. We thought, oh, that's sort of the, that's the stereotypical rocker. And we wanted to be not that. Our influences were more old rhythm and blues or Motown or just things that were more sort of, more inclusive with the audience.
Yeah. And another big influence, I think, for us was also, rap or hip hop.
Yes, definitely.
That was really emerging at the time. A lot of it, it was like, there was kind of like De La Soul, and there was Tone Loc, there was Young MC, and then there was this band, Jungle Brothers.
Right.
And they had this song called Tribe Vibes. When I heard that song, I said, I want to write a song like that, but then also like has like kind of like a rock sort of punk feel. That was really the inspiration of Hippie Hippie Shake for me. And so I have a really clear memory of like, you were out doing something, I think it was like on a weekends, like in the morning. And so I made a demo, like an instrumental demo of what was the beginning of Hippie Hippie Shake. And I remember you coming back and, and I was saying, listen to this, I feel like I've got something. And you said, that's it. Like, that's the sound. That was the beginning of Hippie Hippie Shake. And I feel like that was when, our sounds started to crystallize. And at the same time, we found this great drummer, Joe Pusateri. What do you remember about Joe?
I just remember Joe sort of elevated the music. It was almost as if you had said to someone, hey, I want this sort of hip hop meets kind of rock meets punk like vibe. And then Joe just appeared and embodied that and brought that into the music. And I think kind of, it was almost as if that unlocked the sound that was in your head, but then we needed to actually be able to play it. And Joe enabled us, I think, to really do that.
Yeah. And I think that like, at that point, it kind of crystallized for us, like maybe we've got the wrong name. And so we kind of like embarked on this process to search for a new name for the band.
It was a very technical process that involved a piece of paper and a pen.
So we have that list that you made of just all. I mean, like it's unbelievable, like how many ideas you came up with.
How many bad ideas? So that's the part that's believable.
Yeah, but down at the bottom, you see it if you look closely. There's Big Soul there.
Yeah, and that was something that had been floating around for a while, because one of the first, when I first started hanging out with Kelleth, he played me John Lee Hooker's songs. I'd never known them, and one of them is called Teaching the Blues, and he says, yes, with a big soul. And I just always loved that line for whatever reason, and that just became the name, and then it stuck, and that kind of was part of forming this new sound, new identity that would lead us to the next step.
Yeah, I feel like we had finally found our sounds. We had finally, just figured out what our identity was.
Yeah, I think that the vision was there early on, but I think that what you have in your head is not necessarily, it takes a long time to match the reality with that, right?
We had the idea, we had the vision, but our songs, our look, our brands, like you said, it hadn't caught up to that vision yet.
Yeah. And that was why it took the time it took to do that, with all the trial and error and the mistakes and the rejections, and each time. And we're going to talk about that more when we talk about writing the song in French. Like, there were a lot of times the rejections and the sort of, the humiliating, horrible moments, in fact, were exactly what we needed to push us to the next level.
Yeah.
Because without that, you just stay in your comfort zone, right? And so I would say LA was, definitely not a comfort zone, at least at the beginning.
Not at all. No.
But yeah, so Khaled, I'm excited about so looking forward to our next episode, when we find a backup singer and get ready to record our first professional demo tape.
I can't wait.
Quite exciting.
That. That's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
This has been fun too.
This has been great, Khaled. And, I just have to say, after 30 years, what key are we in again? What's the next song in the set list?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I lost the set list.
Okay. All right. Well, we're signing off for now. And thanks for everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you and on the next Big Soul podcast.
All right. Talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
A big soul.
Bye, Khaled. See you later. Bye.